The Senate will be out of recess. I call the Senate to order and to say good afternoon to everyone. I recognize Senator Birdsell for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate adjourn from the late session.
Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion to adjourn passes. We are now in the early session. The Senate will be attentive to our chaplain, the Reverend Mark Warren.
Good afternoon, Madam President. Good afternoon, Senators. Good afternoon, guests. If your faith allows, let's pray together. Lord, we come before you today with gratitude for these men and women who have dedicated their time and effort to serve the people of New Hampshire. We ask for your blessing upon their work, their deliberations, their commitment to the common good. As they consider the many bills before them, grant them the wisdom to discern what's truly important, that will help our state not just to function, but to thrive. May they approach each decision with clarity, seek what is right and just for the people they represent. In committee discussions, help them to listen not just to the loudest voices, but to the voice of reason. May they be guided by truth, integrity, and a deep sense of responsibility. Let their debates be marked with respect and their judgments be shaped by wisdom that comes from you. Lord, we ask that each senator be filled with a spirit of partnership, working together to solve the challenges before them. May they seek the welfare of all, leading with humility, compassion, and a steadfast commitment. We place this session in your hands, trusting in your guidance and grace. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Senator Innes will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, there are no absences today, which is always a good thing. Next, we're going to move on to the introduction of guests. Senator Innes and Senator Innes. Senator Pearl, are you both going to do the Girl Scouts together? Okay, great.
Your space, if that's all right.
Yes, okay.
All right.
Back as long as I don't fall over.
All right. Good afternoon. In front of you, you have some lovely Girl Scout cookies, and I think Sheena, where is she, is partly responsible for that, as maybe these young ladies, a couple of Girl Scouts who are with us. They're from Boscawen in my district, and their troop is located in Loudon in Senator Pearl's district, and it's our honor and pleasure to present these two young women to you today. And they have achieved the Bronze Award, which is the highest award at the junior level in the Girl Scouts. And we have a document here for each of them, a resolution, and I will read it to you. A New Hampshire Senate resolution, be it known that the New Hampshire Senate extends its congratulations, in this case, to Charlotte Erickson in recognition of achieving the Bronze Award, the highest award at the junior level in Girl Scout Troop 60180 in Loudon, and be it further known that the New Hampshire Senate extends its best wishes for continued success. All right, so congratulations, Charlotte.
Well, thank you, Senator Innes, and thank you, guys. It's great to have you here, and I love to see the commitment. I was a Boy Scout myself, and I just appreciate the commitment it takes to do what you do. So, the New Hampshire Senate, be it known that the New Hampshire Senate extends its congratulations to Haley Camley in recognition of achieving the Bronze Award, the highest award at the junior level, Girl Scout Troop 60180 in Loudon, and be it further known that the New Hampshire Senate extends its best wishes for continued success. It's a real honor to have these great girls in the town of Loudon, and I look forward to the future you're all going to have. So here you are. Shall we get a picture? There we are.
Congratulations to both of you. Very well done. Very well done. All right. After you.
Go ahead.
I also have one other very special guest here with me today, and it happens to be a very special day for her. So if my wife would like to come up, I would love to have Heather. Come on, Heather. So today happens to be Heather's birthday. It's her actual birthday, and I thought, boy, if we're meeting here on her birthday, it would only be appropriate to recognize that, and perhaps maybe we could all sing her happy birthday. What do you think? So if you'll join, Kevin, go ahead. You may lead.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Heather. Happy birthday to you.
I won't tell you how old she is.
Okay. Okay. Further introduction of guests, Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam President and colleagues. Please join me in welcoming Brendan Madden, who is founder and chairman of Service Dogs New Hampshire, and his father, David Madden. And welcome.
Okay. You want everyone please sit. Without objection, today's fiscal report is adopted. Okay, nobody objects. Okay. Okay. We have a few bills that have been removed from consent. In education, Senate Bill 33. From Education Finance, Senate Bill 296 by Senator Murphy. Senate Bill 236 from Energy by Senator Waters. Senate Bill 198 out of the Executive Departments and Administration Committee by Senator Waters. Senate Bill 263 from the Judiciary Committee by Senator Carson. Senate Bill 157 out of Transportation by Senator Ricciardi. And Senate Bill 291 out of Ways and Means by Senator Abbas. Okay.
Did you skip the special?
Maybe I did. Okay, I think I did. Yeah. Okay. Without objection, the following bills are ordered to the beginning of the regular calendar. Out of Executive Departments and Administration, Senate Bill 198. And without objection, the following bills are special ordered to the following dates. Out of Commerce, Senate Bill 84 to March 20th, 2025. In Judiciary, Senate Bill 263 is special ordered to March 20th, 2025. And out of Ways and Means, Senate Bill 291 is special ordered to March 27th, 2025. Okay. Senator Birdsall moves that the consent calendar with the relevant amendments as printed in the day's calendar be adopted, and that all such bills found ought to pass be ordered as follows. Fiscal bills not waived under Senate Rule 5-4 to the Committee on Finance. Non-FN bills approved for referral to Finance by the day's fiscal note report to the Committee on Finance, and all other bills to third reading. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The consent calendar is adopted. We are now going to move on to the regular calendar, and we're starting with ED&A. Yep, okay. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Executive Departments. You like that loud? The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred Senate Bill 198, an act declaring the third week in September to be New Hampshire Service Dog Week. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 5-0. Senator McGough for the committee.
Senator McGough.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Bill 198 declares the third week of September to be New Hampshire Service Dog Week. Service dogs were first trained for wounded veterans of World War I. and have continued to be trained and provide assistance to all types of people with disabilities. This week would also help people differentiate between service dogs and emotional support dogs.
Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Senator Waters?
Thank you, Madam President and colleagues. I also rise in support of Senate Bill 198, declaring the third week in September to be New Hampshire Service Dog Week. This bill brought forward to me by Brendan Madden and many other advocates as well, because it's an important opportunity for us to recognize the profound impact that service dogs have on the lives of individuals with disabilities, enhancing independence, mobility, and overall quality of life. And just as a reminder, colleagues, there are about 61 million adults in the United States living with a disability. It's about 26% of the adult population, and 13% of the children in our country under the age of 18 also are living with a disability. And the United States is home to about 500,000 service dogs. That's a large pack, and they want to be appreciated. And it's really an extraordinary range of activities that these dogs are trained to help with, assisting individuals with disabilities, including those with mobility impairments, visual and hearing impairments, autism, epilepsy, diabetes, post-traumatic stress disorder, among others, vital support, of course, companionship, and a sense of security. And there's the hope that in acknowledging this week every year, it really is an opportunity to provide education to the public about the incredible contribution of service dogs. It's also an opportunity to honor the extraordinary folks who train and care for these remarkable animals, and once again, really just celebrate the profound bond between service dogs and individuals they serve. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on Senate Bill 198. Are there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Commerce, to which was referred Senate Bill 79FN, an act enabling the use of self-pour automated systems by liquor commission licensees. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 3-2. Senator Murphy for the committee.
Senator Murphy?
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 79 ought to pass with amendment. This bill will define and enable the use of self-pour automated systems by holders of on-premises liquor licenses. Rules already permit the use of these systems, so the bill would simply codify existing practice. The committee amendment made technical changes to the underlying bill. Given the necessity of the hospitality industry to meet demand during staffing service shortages, and given there are sufficient safeguards in place, the majority of the Commerce Committee asks for your support on the motion of ought to pass with amendment on Senate Bill 79FN. Thank you, Madam President.
Business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 79. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. Okay. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass as amended is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Commerce, to which was referred Senate Bill 162FN, an act relative to restrictions on acquisition of ownership, controlling occupancy, interest in real property by certain foreign principals on or around certain military installations, and criminal penalties and civil forfeiture procedures for illegal acquisition. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 3-2. Senator Murphy for the committee.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 162 ought to pass with amendment. This bill would restrict foreign principals from countries of concern, specifically the CCP, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and Syria, or their agents, from acquiring ownership, controlling, or occupancy or interest in real property within 10 miles of protected facilities. Further, this bill would establish an affidavit filing requirement to confirm eligibility for acquiring such property interest, as well as introduce criminal penalties and a forfeiture procedure for violations. National security concerns have heightened as foreign entities have begun to increasingly control more farmland, specifically near sensitive and critical military infrastructure. In 2021, for instance, a Chinese-based company, Fufeng, purchased agricultural land within 20 minutes of Grand Forks Air Force Base, which serves as the backbone of global military communications, as well as houses the nation's most sensitive military drone technology. The committee amendment addressed concerns raised by realtors who were worried they could be held liable during the affidavit process. Since other states have adopted similar legislation, and this bill would make critical facilities in New Hampshire, such as the U.S. Space Force Base in New Boston, more secure, the majority of the Commerce Committee asks for your support on the motion of all to pass with amendment on Senate Bill 162. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Senator Birdsall.
President, I rise in support of this bill. This is the second time I've put it in, and we'll get it over to the House and see what they do again. But as the good senator from District 16 stated about the Grand Forks Air Force Base, so I won't go through that again. But I want to make sure that this doesn't happen in New Hampshire, because the land purchases by the Chinese Communist Party and some of our other adversaries in our country are typically near military bases, airports, and our critical infrastructure, which is becoming a national security threat to the point where even Congress is starting to look at it. And they've been trying to work through an organization named CFIUS, and I'll go into a little bit of CFIUS a little bit later. So this is getting a growing area of concern. It's getting worse each year. In 2010, according to the USDA, there were 13,720 acres of agricultural land held by China, and by 2020, China held at least 352,140 acres of agricultural land. This is, to me, unacceptable. The federal government has taken action recently on this issue in a bipartisan way, but we need to protect our state. So what's been happening is an organization called CFIUS, which is the Committee of Financial, I think it's Financial Information for the U.S., but basically it's a committee that looks at purchases from land throughout the country and from our adversaries. Unfortunately, when I talked to Congressman Pappas' office, who I worked with on this piece of legislation, they are really disappointed in CFIUS because it takes so long. It takes at least 2 years to just get on the list, because then it has to go to the president, and the president has to approve it. And in addition, I just read this article where the Chinese government has actually hacked into CFIUS's database. So they're monitoring the organization that is trying to monitor them and their land purchases. So it is becoming a major issue. So 162 prohibits any employee or agent of certain governments known as foreign principals from buying or purchasing or leasing property in New Hampshire within 10 miles of the critical organizations. And these governments, I took, at the subcommittee we had last summer, I took the information. They wanted it broadened as far as they didn't want just the CCP. They wanted China, Russia, Syria, Iran, and North Korea, and that's why we added those in there. So every individual or entity will be required to sign a qualified renter purchaser affidavit when they buy or lease a property within 10 miles. And some of the concern was, why is it 10 miles? Well, 10 miles is what every piece of legislation throughout the country uses, because once you get to 10 miles, it starts deteriorating the spine equipment that they use, which is why they use 10 miles. Because frankly, the director of Space Force wanted 20. So I said no. So acquisition of property in violation of the statute will be a Class A misdemeanor when committed by a natural person, and Class B felony when committed by an entity. And violations may be referred for prosecution to county attorneys, and the AG may bring a forfeiture. As it was said, the bill was amended in the committee to try and assuage some of the realtors' concerns. So we cannot, I don't think we can stand idly by while our adversaries are starting to purchase land near our critical military bases, and I think they can steal our national security, intelligence, and secrets, and I would really ask that we pass this on a bipartisan basis, get it over to the House, and try and fight it with it in the House. So, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion ought to pass as amended is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be adopted to the clerk.
I missed something.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Commerce, to which was referred Senate Bill 164FN, an act relative to homeowners and prohibiting certain type of service agreements. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 4 to 2. Senator Ricciardi for the committee.
Senator Ricciardi.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 164FN ought to pass with amendment. This bill would prohibit unfair service agreements in residential real estate transactions, make such agreements unenforceable, prevent their recording, and provide remedies for affected individuals. There are out-of-state companies who offer upfront cash payments with excessively long-term agreements. These agreements are tied to the homeowner and the property itself. If the property is transferred or sold, the new owner is still bound to that same agreement. If an agreement is broken, a significant penalty can be levied. It is important to note 30 states, including Maine and Connecticut, have passed similar legislation. The committee amendment provided a definition for residential real estate, and it clarified that service agreements are deemed unfair if services are not performed within 2 years after an agreement has been entered into. The latter change was consistent with Maine's law. The majority of the Commerce Committee asks for your support on the motion of ought to pass with amendment on Senate Bill 164. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion ought to pass as amended is adopted and is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Commerce, to which was referred Senate Bill 176FN, an act relative to the state minimum hourly rate. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3 to 1. Senator Innes for the committee.
Senator Innes.
Thank you, Madam President. It's a microphone day today, Gardner. Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 176FN inexpedient to legislate. This bill would have increased the minimum wage to $12 an hour on September 1st of this year, and it would have increased further to $15 an hour on July 1st of next year. Raising the minimum wage would have potentially dire consequences that could impact workers and small businesses throughout our state, including fewer jobs being available, reduced hours for employees, a transition toward automation, increased prices, possible business closures, and upward compression on wages. Businesses throughout the state have already responded to the forces of the free market by offering competitive wages. In addition, it's important to recognize that while other states surrounding New Hampshire may indeed have higher minimum wages, they also have state income tax to take away part of those wages. In fact, this bill would hurt the people it's purported to help. As starting wages are increased, especially for entry-level positions, technology will replace those positions, creating fewer opportunities for young people in particular to get started in their careers. A majority of the Commerce Committee asks for your support on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 176 FN. And well, Madam President, there's so much more that could be said. I'm going to let it go today. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any discussion? Senator Fenton.
Thank you, Madam President. I won't be letting it go, but I do rise in opposition to the motion of inexpedient to legislate. Raising the minimum wage is about protecting workers in the granite state and ensuring that they can make a livable wage to provide for themselves and their families. We know that New Hampshire is facing a workforce shortage. Small businesses are in need of a workforce and recruitment and retention. And raising the minimum wage can serve as a recruitment tool by giving employers an opportunity to attract employees. We've heard testimony from one of my colleagues that wage levels are being exceeded across the state at widespread level. By raising the hourly rate incrementally, we can protect small businesses by allowing them to plan while also raising wage levels for employees that are already being met. Raising the minimum wage will also lead to economic stimulus within our communities, as well as spending money more in their local communities. In the interest of hardworking Granite Staters and the economic well-being of our communities, I urge my fellow colleagues to join me in opposing the inexpedient to legislate motion. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Senator Gannon.
Chair, thank you very much for taking my statements. So the free market is working. Sig Sauer, $25 to $30 an hour to box a gun, his bottom job, cleaning the floors, boxing. He will pay you. He is looking for workers. He'll also pay you to go to college, even though it has nothing to do with your career choice. If you want to stay there, he'll teach you to do anything on the floor, and you can make significant salaries in the $100,000 range after a few years. Anecdotally, my youngest daughter, I decided it was time to get her to work because she spent all my money at Starbucks, and she wasn't appreciating the money. So I said, go get a job. And she didn't have a hard time doing it. She went to the Early Bird Cafe in Plastow. They offered her $18 an hour to bus. And then they said, if you do busing instead of hostessing, we'll let you share in the tips. She's bringing home $33 an hour on average. The jobs are out there. The free market's working. We do not need to have a state minimum wage. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Senator Altschiller. And then Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate for Senate Bill 176. And I rise to address the pressing issue of wage increases and growing economic challenges facing the Granite State. The cost of living has risen significantly, especially when it comes to housing. The price of a two-bedroom apartment has skyrocketed, and it's not just housing. Other essentials like food, transportation, health care are also becoming increasingly expensive. To keep up with these rising costs, working families need higher wages in order to achieve basic economic security. I also want to address the issue of cross-border employment competition. In border communities, this has become an increasing challenge. Workers are motivated to cross into neighboring states where wages are higher, making it harder to retain younger, skilled workers in our own state. We cannot afford to lose this workforce, especially when those workers should be the backbone of our future economy. And when our neighboring states are more than double what we pay, a loss in that income tax is negligible. Some argue that raising the minimum wage would negatively impact consumers, suggesting that smaller profit margins and higher labor costs would lead to higher prices for goods and services. But I have to ask, how is it that small businesses across the border are thriving despite similar labor costs? I raised the point of how businesses in neighboring states manage to function under these circumstances? And the answer is simple as to how. They are given time to adapt, and they recognize the need to pay workers a fair wage to keep them in the workforce. It is time that we rise to a wage level that is at least comparable to the rest of New England. We can no longer allow our workers to fall behind while the cost of living continues to climb. Raising the minimum wage is not just a matter of fairness, it's a matter of economic necessity. Thank you, and I urge my colleagues to vote down the motion of inexpedient to legislate so that we might introduce an amendment to address some of the concerns about this pressing issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any further discussion on the inexpedient to legislate question? Senator Waters has a question for.
Thank you, Madam President. For the senator from District 10. Thank you, Senator, for taking my question. So we heard a kind of a little litany of which pieces of the sky will fall if we were to pass this bill, but would it be fair to say that the states around us who have passed this bill, the sky is still fully intact and businesses are thriving?
Senator, thank you for the question. I would say that is an accurate statement. I think, all the New England states around us have higher minimum wages. West Virginia has a higher minimum wage than us. Florida has a higher minimum wage than us. So I think that would be an accurate statement, that the sky is not falling in these other states.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Innes to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm a participant, an investor in 3 restaurants in Washington, D.C., where we've seen the minimum wage for restaurant workers in particular move up very rapidly. And I can tell you that 2 of the 3 are no longer making money, and restaurants in Washington, D.C. are beginning to close all around us. This does have a major impact, and we see it work every time it's done too quickly and thoughtlessly. It works here. The federal minimum wage has been set. Very, very few people here are making that wage unless they're high school students. And as was noted by my colleague from District 23, people are starting at $18 to $30 an hour without a degree. So this bill isn't necessary, and I encourage the body, please uphold the motion of inexpedient to legislate. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Perkins-Coker has a question for.
Thank you, Madam President. Question my colleague from District 10.
Yes.
You're popular. Senator, would you believe that there's not a single county in our country where you can afford housing on minimum wage?
Senator, I will take your word for that.
Thank you.
Senator Lang has a question.
Of the senator from District, sorry, I forgot your number, Dan.
7.
7.
We need to get those little papers.
Would it surprise you to know that when California instituted its minimum wage, it lost 16,000 jobs in the restaurant industry?
It would not surprise me. I'm surprised it hasn't been higher.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, the motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Roll call. Okay, a roll call has been requested by Senator Burgel, seconded by Senator Avard. Okay, the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort?
Yes.
Senator Lang?
Yes.
Senator McConkey?
Yes.
Senator Waters?
No.
Senator Prentiss?
No.
Senator Gray?
Yes.
Senator Innes?
Yes.
Senator Ward?
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi?
Yes.
Senator Fenton?
No.
Senator McGough?
Yes.
Senator Avard?
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald?
No.
Senator Reardon?
No.
Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Pearl?
Yes.
Senator Sullivan?
Yes.
Senator Birdsell?
Yes.
Senator Long?
No.
Senator Perkins-Coker?
No.
Senator Abbas?
Yes.
Senator Gannon?
Yes.
Senator Altschiller?
No.
And Senator Carson?
Yes. The ayes have it by a vote of 16 to 8. Okay, is this going to third reading?
No, that's ITL.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred Senate Bill 97FN, an act relative to intra-district public school transfers. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 3 to 2. Senator Sullivan for the committee.
Senator Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam
President, I move that Senate Bill 97 FM ought to pass with amendment. As amended, Senate Bill 97 FN allows parents to transfer their children to another public school within their district if the requested school has the capacity to accommodate the student based on student-to-teacher ratios and existing school capacity. The amendment ensures that local school boards adopt a policy to address instances of schools receiving more requests than there is the ability for the school to accommodate. This bill reinforces families' ability to choose the best educational path for their children. This bill also has the additional benefit of addressing issues of transience and bullying in our schools at no cost to the taxpayers. I respectfully ask that you support the Senate Education Committee's motion of ought to pass with amendment on Senate Bill 95 FN. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Okay, seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Senator Prentiss.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to introduce Floor Amendment 2025-0844S. I think it is in everyone's packets. And I would like to thank my colleague from District 18 for her work on this in committee. Just want to make sure everyone has a copy of it before we. Okay. So
yeah, excuse me. I'm being told that that amendment is in your folders.
I found one, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, no, hold on. The committee will be in recess. Out of recess, Senator Prentiss was offering us floor amendment 0844S and has been recognized to speak to her amendment. Senator?
Thank you, Madam President. So you have provided us with the number of the amendment that we are considering. And again, I want to thank my colleague from District 18 for her work on the committee amendment. What I am proposing here is to make this an optional and opt-in policy for local school boards. So not only would they do what my colleague from District 18 has asked, which is manage this based on capacity and student-teacher ratio, but they would also decide as a school board whether they wanted to adopt this. I think we all know that in New Hampshire, it's not a one-size-fits-all for our school districts, okay? So for our communities, for our cities, our towns, but for our school districts. So giving them, I value what my colleague from District 18 has brought forward, but I think we should give school districts the opportunity to choose by their own vote whether they want to enter into this and make it a policy. And again, my colleague from District 18 has managed the capacity issue in the committee amendment, and at the end of the day, local schools know their local families, they know their communities, they know their needs, and they know their capacity. So let's let them make that choice. So I'm asking for your vote to make this, to pass floor amendment 0844S. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Senator. Is there any further discussion on the proposed amendment number 0844S? Senator Sullivan.
Madam President, and I want to thank my colleague from District 5 for her work on this, the willingness to work on this bill with me. I have to, however, respectfully not support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any further discussion on the proposed floor amendment? Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of floor amendment number 0844S. Are you ready for the question? All in favor of the floor amendment say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. Okay. The noes have it. The floor amendment fails. The bill is still on second reading and open for further discussion and amendment. Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 97. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted, and the bill is ordered to the Committee on Finance. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred Senate Bill 203FN, an act relative to administration of Education Freedom Accounts Program. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3-2. Senator Abbas for the committee.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 203-FN inexpedient to legislate. Senate Bill 203 proposed changes to the Education Freedom Accounts Program, including an annual income verification for participating families and modifications to the program oversight. The bill would have required families to maintain income eligibility each year rather than only at the time of the initial enrollment. This bill also directed the Department of Education to conduct annual reporting and audits. After careful consideration, the Senate Education Committee determined that this bill would place an unnecessary burden on the Department of Education and families accessing the EFA program. This bill would disrupt the education of students currently thriving in the program. For these reasons, the Senate Education Committee asks for your support on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 203-FN. If I may speak further, Madam President.
Yes, you may, Senator.
Through a lot of the discussions we have on this topic, what I think often gets lost is what this is really about, and it's really about the child's education. And I cannot support a situation where a child, their education could be disrupted due to a modest increase in the household income, especially if the child's thriving. And those children, we'll see them in our community, and to have to face that and explain to them why I support disrupting their education, that is a policy that I cannot support. So please join me and support the committee's recommendation of inexpedient to legislate. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Senator Altschiller.
Madam President, I rise in opposition to the inexpedient to legislate motion on Senate Bill 203. Philosophically, we don't believe that public taxpayer dollars should go unaudited to non-public entities. And we certainly do not believe that working families should be funding private tuition for wealthy families. That said, I got a great public education, and I can count. So we need to work within the reality of today, which includes the EFA program. So while this program remains in place, like with all other government programs, we should be handling taxpayer money with the utmost care. And we do so in part by ensuring that taxpayer money only goes to strictly those who qualify. And that's what this bill does by instituting a yearly income verification. Every other government assistance program has this in place already. And this program, the EFA program, already has the mechanism in place to do this, as they do it when people enter the program. So they're not they're not reinventing the wheel. They do it to get in. They can do it annually. In this specific case, we understand that we're talking about children's education, and we have heard in this chamber over and over a great concern over children's educational continuity, the potential injustice of the choice a parent or guardian has made to place their child in a private school could be threatened with disruption because a family's household income may increase by a few dollars. We heard you. And in response to those concerns, I ask you to overturn the ITL motion so that we can consider language that will help prevent disruption and strike the right balance between potentially interrupting a child's education and protecting taxpayers. Because right now, in our current system, families making 300% of the poverty line in their first year, and then 400, 500, or even 600% over the poverty line in subsequent years are treated as the same as a family making 150% of the poverty line each year. That is inherently unfair. If the intent of this program was truly to help low-income families, this should be an easy vote. I urge you to vote no on the ITL so we can consider compromise language that addresses concerns raised and protects taxpayers. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 203. Are you ready for the question? A roll call has been requested by Senator McGough, seconded by Senator Avard. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentiss.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi.
Yes.
Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McGough.
Yes.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
No.
Senator Abbas.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altschiller.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Yes. The ayes have it by a vote of 16 to 8. The motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred, Senate Bill 205 FN, an act requiring schools to offer free or reduced cost breakfast and lunch to children who meet federal income eligibility guidelines. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3 to 2. Senator Ward for the committee.
Senator Ward.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 205 FN inexpedient to legislate. Senate Bill 205 FN would require all public schools to provide free or reduced cost breakfast and lunch to students who meet federal income eligibility guidelines. While the bill aimed to address food insecurity, the committee determined its funding mechanism was unclear. It would create a significant financial burden on local school districts without state funding to support implementation. The committee instead voted as SB 204 FN ought to pass with consent. After careful review, the committee determined that Senate Bill 204 made the most sense to move forward between the two bills pertaining to school meals, as each bill would amend the same RSA if passed. I respectfully ask for your support of the committee's recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 205 FN. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Any discussion? Senator Long.
Madam President, I rise in opposition to the inexpedient to legislate motion. School meals are critical in ensuring that every child receives the nutrition needed to succeed in schools. This bill acknowledges breakfast is essential for children's well-being. It creates fewer school nurse visits relating to hunger, fewer behavioral issues, higher test scores, higher graduation rates. Right now, New Hampshire law only requires schools to offer one meal a day to students. The vast majority of schools offer both breakfast and lunch. That would be 449 current schools. However, 28 public schools and 38 charter schools who offer lunch and not breakfast. This bill makes sure all students at all schools have the nutrition they need to learn. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Senator Lang, you have a question of?
The senator from District 8, Senator Ward. Thank you for taking my question, Senator. So I understand from your statement that we have a bill that we passed on consent. That was a bipartisan bill with the senator from District 10 and myself that addresses this issue in a more fiscally responsible way?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education, to which it was referred, Senate Bill 207 FN, an act requiring the Department of Education to administer the Education Freedom Account Program. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3 to 2. Senator Ward for the committee.
Senator Ward.
Madam President, I move Senate Bill 207, FN inexpedient to legislate. Senate Bill 207 FN proposed transferring the administration of the Education Freedom Account Program from scholarship organizations to the Department of Education, while also modifying oversight, auditing, and reporting requirements. The bill aimed to increase government control over the program, but after review, the Senate Education Committee determined that the current structure provides greater efficiency and flexibility for families utilizing EFAs. The committee found that shifting program administration to the Department of Education would increase bureaucracy and limit accessibility without clear benefits to students. I respectfully ask for your support of the committee's recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 207 FN. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any discussion? Senator Altschiller.
Madam President, I rise in opposition to the ITL motion on Senate Bill 207. If it is our constitutional duty to provide an adequate education for all students, would it not also be our duty to administer to this state voucher program? Senate Bill 207 brings the administration of the Education Freedom Account program under the Department of Education. As a department of state government, the administration of auditing can be done by the Legislative Budget Authority without issue. As the LBA says on its own website, fiscal transparency is key to a healthy democracy, and public scrutiny helps ensure that government works for the people and spends their tax dollars wisely. What is not yet on that website, though, is an audit of the EFA program. Currently, the Children's Scholarship Fund can use up to 10% of deposits or deductions from the EFAs to cover administrative costs. With a program projecting to have a cost of almost $30 million, pulling this program under the Department of Education will significantly reduce those costs, even with a reduction of no more than 5% of the cost. I can think of a lot of agencies that could do a lot with $1.5 million. Some efficiencies and highlights I would like to point out are the following. On page 4, section 6, the Department of Education would have the option of extending an offer to Class Wallet, who currently enjoys a no-bid contract. They would be invited to compete with other services like Elio, Pay Schools, or Skyward to be our financial technology company that assists with payments, purchasing, and reimbursements. It would be good to get that process out to competitive bid. Page 5, section 13, addresses the issue of evaluating preferred vendors and what is covered under that preferential status, shedding light on this currently opaque process. Section 14 will finally clear the way for the LBA to access all the information it needs to thoroughly conduct an audit and report to the Joint Legislative Performance Audit Committee. Senate Bill 207 will rein in the EFA program and end the practice that no other state agency has of skipping the public rulemaking process. Additionally, at this moment, we have no idea how students are performing under this program, but we do know how students are faring across the country in similar programs, and it's not promising. In Wisconsin, there is a 20% exit rate back into the public schools, and academic performance improved when students returned. Florida and Indiana had similarly high exit rates. And in terms of student achievement, long-term studies in Ohio and Louisiana show that voucher programs caused more learning loss than Hurricane Katrina and COVID-19, with dramatic decreases in math scores. If New Hampshire's EFAs are so successful, let's get some great data to support it. But the fact is, we have no measure of student achievement in these programs. And let's talk about program oversight. In a small audit of the program, the DOE found that nearly 25% of applications had errors with addresses or income verification. The audit only covered 50 applications, less than 1% of the program. What about the thousands of others? Having the DOE administer the program would ensure that we have the aggregate data to assess the program's success and provide oversight to prevent any fraud. We care about students' success, and it's time that we back this up. I ask this body to vote against the ITL motion so that another motion can be made. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Senator Innes.
Thank you. Question, please, of the senator from District 24.
Yes, Senator.
You note, Senator, that the results for students that use the voucher program, go to private schools, maybe their performance isn't as strong as some of the public school children. I wonder, did those studies control for the starting point of each of those children? That is, some might not have been well prepared or maybe struggled with learning in the public schools and were behind. Was that controlled for in those research studies?
So thank you for the question. I did not say that, actually. In fact, what I said, that students who are involved in their voucher program, which like ours, cover both private school and home schools. So we don't know, just like ours, where the students are going. But we do know when they exit that EFA program from whatever they were doing, which is an opaque process, when they come back to the public schools, where we measure how students are faring, we see that their academic performance improves when they come back to public school. So if we knew what it is they were doing when they went over there, maybe we could evaluate that. But just like in New Hampshire, we don't ask.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Birdsall for a question of?
The good senator from District 8.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for taking my question, Senator. The good senator from District 24 said that the administrative costs were up to 10%. Didn't we reduce it last year to 8% because the administrative costs were running lower?
Actually, right now, it's just a tad below 8%.
Thank you.
Okay. The motion is an expedient to legislate on Senate Bill 207. Is there any further discussion? Roll call. A roll call has been asked by Senator Avard. Is there a second? I can recommend it. Seconded by Senator McGough. Okay. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort?
Yes.
Senator Lang?
Yes.
Senator McConkey?
Yes.
Senator Waters?
No.
Senator Prentiss?
No.
Senator Gray?
Yes.
Senator Innes?
Yes.
Senator Ward?
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi?
Yes.
Senator Fenton?
No.
Senator McGough?
Yes.
Senator Avard?
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald?
No.
Senator Reardon?
No.
Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Pearl?
Yes.
Senator Sullivan?
Yes.
Senator Birdsall?
Yes.
Senator Long?
No.
Senator Perkins Cuoca?
No.
Senator Abbas?
Yes.
Senator Gannon?
Yes.
Senator Altschiller?
No.
And Senator Carson?
Yes. The ayes have it by a vote of 16 to 8. The motion of inexpedient passes. Yes. Okay. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred, Senate Bill 208FN, an act requiring local school boards and public libraries to adopt curation policies. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill be re-referred to committee by a vote of 3 to 2. Senator Altschiller for the committee.
Senator Altschiller.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 208FN to be re-referred back to committee. Senate Bill 208FN would require local school boards and public libraries to adopt curation policies for selecting and removing materials, while also providing legal protections for library staff who follow these policies. The bill intends to ensure clear, consistent guidelines for managing library collections while balancing intellectual freedom and community input. After review, the Senate Education Committee determined that further discussion is necessary to refine the policy framework and address implementation concerns. For these reasons, the Senate Education Committee asks for your support on the motion of re-referring Senate Bill 208FN to committee. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is re-referred to committee. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of re-refer to committee on Senate Bill 208. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion of re-refer to committee is adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education Finance, to which was referred Senate Bill 293FN, an act relative to using enrollment in Medicaid as a measure of eligibility for school lunches. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3 to 2. Senator Ward for the committee.
Senator Ward.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 293FN inexpedient to legislate. This legislation is relative to using enrollment in Medicaid as a measure of eligibility for school lunches. As important and admirable as this legislation is, the Education Committee has already heard and passed multiple bills regarding eligibility for federal free and reduced school lunches. The committee decided not to move this bill forward as it would be a duplicate of other legislation. I ask the Senate to join the Education Finance Committee's recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on 293FN. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any discussion? Senator Long?
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to the inexpedient to legislate. A fair and accurate school funding formula would assure that taxpayer dollars are being spent wisely and efficiently. Our current formula undercounts children living in poverty, shortchanging our schools and forcing them to do more with less. By using a more precise measure, Medicaid eligibility, we can assure funds go where they're needed the most. New Hampshire school funding formula measures poverty as the number of students receiving free and reduced price meals. This measure is outdated, inaccurate, and inefficient. There are an estimated 10,500 eligible children who are being left out by the formula because they aren't enrolled in free and reduced meals, for a variety of reasons, included unnecessary paperwork, lack of awareness, as well as concerns about family privacy. Entities providing this information are responsible with confidentiality, assuring privacy is maintained. Using Medicaid as the poverty measure in the school funding formula would more accurately measure the number of children living in poverty. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Senator Lang.
Madam President, so last term I chaired a committee that looked at this exact issue. And the question was, parents are giving multiple opportunities to be able to register and opt into this program that they choose not to do. In an effort to try to get to a compromise, I worked with the Commissioner Henry Lippman over at Health and Human Services, and they are on the way to put a checkbox on the Medicaid form that says, if my child is eligible for Medicaid, you're eligible to share my data with the Department of Education for the purposes of free and reduced lunch. There's already a process in works. This bill's unneeded.
Senator Lang. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 293. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education Finance, to which was referred Senate Bill 295FN, an act expanding the number of students eligible for the Education Freedom Accounts. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 3 to 2. Senator Murphy for the committee.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 295 ought to pass with amendment. Senate Bill 295 removes the current income limit on the program, expanding the number of children eligible for Education Freedom Accounts with the goal of eventually making them an option for every parent and every child in our state. The committee amendment is an acknowledgement of the challenging budgetary environment and places an initial cap of 10,000 participants per year in the first year, but raises that cap 25% in any year the number of applications get within 10%. This tiered approach will gradually get the state to universal access while responsibly protecting the state from a sudden surge of participants. The amendment includes language prioritizing applicants in the event the cap is reached, with current participants, their siblings, disabled children, and children from families under the current income limit moving to the top of the pile. The amendment also continues the residency requirement so that every student will need to be a New Hampshire resident in order to qualify. In New Hampshire, we are blessed with many great schools staffed by professionals delivering quality education to their students, but not every student in our state is lucky enough to live near one of those schools, and parents should not be forced to send their children to underperforming schools or schools that simply aren't a good match, simply because they happen to live in a given zip code. Nor is it right to force parents to move their families to communities with schools that fit them better in order to obtain a great education. Parents know what's best and what's right for their children, and a one-size-fits-all approach to education means leaving some children behind, unable to reach their educational goals and leaving them ill-prepared for their chosen careers. We should take a broad definition of public education and include education freedom accounts on a menu of options to give parents. Public education is not limited to a traditional building full of textbooks approved by the local school board with a flag in front. Public education should include any means of educating children funded by taxpayers. Only this approach truly empowers parents to make the best choices for their individual child. I ask the Chamber to support the right of parents to choose the best option for their children and support the bill with amendment. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Senator Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam President. Every child in our state deserves the education that supports their needs and lifts them up to be the person that God intended them to be. New Hampshire voters have been very clear. They overwhelmingly support education freedom accounts. Opponents of this bill have stated that the retirement funds of our teachers are dependent upon the per pupil spending allocation. Education should not be about funding systems. It should be about funding children. I ask my fellow colleagues to please support SB 295FN. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The committee will be in recess for 3 minutes. 205. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Senator Altschiller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in opposition to the committee amendment to Senate Bill 295. Sorry, Committee Amendment 0793. Reading this proposed amendment, I immediately thought of the evergreen children's story by Sfir Slobodinka, first published in 1940, about a peddler who sold caps for sale. Once there was a peddler who sold caps, but he was not like an ordinary peddler carrying his wares on his back. He carried them on top of his head. First he had on his own checked hat, then a bunch of gray caps, then a bunch of brown caps, and then a bunch of blue caps, and on the very top, a bunch of red caps. This man seemed to have an endless amount of caps on his head. Take one off, and another was waiting underneath. The caps were without end. Then he ran into a bunch of cheeky monkeys who wreaked havoc on his caps, liked the proposed expansion of the enrollment cap when it reaches 90%. You get another cap. Like this story, the proposal is just silly. I also could not help but remember the Dr. Seuss story, The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Huggins. One cap wasn't really the end. When Bartholomew Huggins took off one, there appeared another, and another, and another, just like this proposal. It's endless. Just like the cap on enrollment in this amendment, it never ends. It just lifts, and we find another. And I would like to address the assertion of my colleague that the EFA program is wildly popular, when in fact, when we look at the numbers, no, it isn't. 95% of New Hampshire families attend their neighborhood school. And it is definitely worth noting that in the hearing report, 299 people signed in support of this bill, and 3,040 signed in opposition. That's 2/3 the number of people who are in the EFA program. This program is in no way wildly popular. Madam President, I ask that this body vote Amendment 0793 inexpedient to legislate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Nope, she doesn't want to ask a question. Okay, the question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Senator Perkins-Coca.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to introduce floor amendment 00963 for SB 295. Let's start by discussing our education funding landscape. New Hampshire ranks dead last in the country for state funding to our neighborhood schools. We've already seen this provoke lawsuits against the state. The Superior Court ruled our current funding is insufficient to provide an adequate education. Not just by a little, but as the ruling states, it should be much higher. So who picks up the tab when the state will not? Property taxpayers. 70% of education funding comes from our local property taxpayers. As a mother of 3 young children, we are a family dealing with rising costs. I'm also a longtime housing advocate. These days, I can't talk to a constituent without them bringing up the higher costs of living in New Hampshire, including our higher property taxes. I know my colleagues are experiencing the same in their districts. So it is our duty this session to ensure that each piece of legislation we pass either lowers property taxes or has a mechanism in place to prevent a raise in property taxes. That's what this amendment does. It ensures that as part of the approval process, our neighborhood schools will receive adequate funding to offset the loss of state funding due to expansion of the vouchers. Because schools still have the same buildings to heat, buses to run, and fields to maintain. Otherwise, our property taxpayers will have to foot the bill to the tune of $52 million in the first year alone, rising potentially tens of millions of dollars each year thereafter with this perennial expanding cap. I believe we should be focused on adequately funding our public neighborhood schools. Strong schools attract a strong workforce, and that serves everyone in our economy. Not expanding a program to siphon even more state funding from our already underfunded neighborhood schools. If you don't share my property tax concerns, there should be no issue voting against this amendment. Otherwise, I think it's time we recognize the real tax burden that these vouchers cause to the real detriment of kids in our neighborhood schools. I hope you'll join me in voting for this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question, is there any further discussion or amendment? Okay, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Is there any discussion on the proposed floor amendment of 0963? Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of floor amendment 0963. Are you ready for the question? A roll call has been requested by Senator Perkins-Coker, seconded by Senator Fenton. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
No.
Senator Lang.
No.
Senator McConkey.
No.
Senator Waters.
Yes.
Senator Prentiss.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
No.
Senator Innes.
No.
Senator Ward.
No.
Senator Rishardi.
No.
Senator Fenton.
Yes.
Senator McGough.
No.
Senator Avard.
No.
Senator Rosenwald. Senator Reardon.
Yes.
Senator Murphy.
No.
Senator Pearl.
Nope.
Senator Sullivan.
No.
Senator Birdsell.
No.
Senator Long.
Yes.
Senator Perkins-Coker.
Yes.
Senator Abbas.
No.
Senator Gannon.
No.
Senator Altschiller.
Yes.
And Senator Carson.
No. The floor amendment is defeated by a vote of 8 to 16. The bill is still on second reading and open for further discussion and amendment. Senator Altschiller.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to introduce floor amendment 0887 in your packet to Senate Bill 295. The universal voucher program we have before us, as put forth by my Republican colleagues, allows, supports, and even encourages wealthy families to take taxpayer money and fund private school tuition that they can already afford. Simply, we are giving cash subsidies to the wealthy, the wealthiest families who are already affording to send their kids to private schools. In fact, we know that 77% of the education vouchers that went out in the first round went to families that had already committed their own private dollars to send their children to private schools, and now we're giving them a subsidy to just give them a little help out. Now, we want even more people to have access to millions of taxpayer dollars. And how does this make any sense? From a government efficiency standpoint, government should be focused on addressing unmet needs. Why would we spend millions of taxpayer dollars on families who do not have a need, who are already affording to send their kids to private school? And with respect to the bill itself, it's simply contradictory to at once allow all families into the program, including those already enrolled in private school, and then to impose a cap of 10,000 people, because we have over 16,000 students in the private schools already. There goes our cap, because what family already in private school wouldn't take advantage of the money? In fact, we have private schools in this state who have started a whole cottage industry to make sure that kids go get their EFA money before they're allowed to ask for financial aid from these institutions. We have encouraged this. This will cost us $83 million alone to fund already enrolled private school students. So let's put that in context with proposed budget cuts from the governor's budget. $70 million to Medicaid, $40 million to affordable housing, $15 million to child care. $83 million to already enrolled private school students? Make it make sense. We could be spending this money on housing, on childcare, on lowering healthcare costs, helping out small businesses, working families, retirees. This amendment would only address a tiny part of the equation, but having to bring it up in the first place reveals that this body has made some unfortunate choices and reveals it loud and clear: welfare for the wealthy, paid by you. I urge this body to accept 0887 and add it to 295. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of Floor Amendment 0887. Is there any further discussion? Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to speak briefly to some of the comments that my colleague in District 24 just made. Josiah Bradley Center came out with the actual numbers, and we're looking at $25 million over a 2-year period for universal EFAs. The initial numbers that were put in were actually incorrectly attributed to students who attend school here that do not live in the state and could not receive those funds. Furthermore, my colleague stated that government should be using funds to serve unmet needs, and yet previously stated an analogy where children were hats or caps that were piled on top of each other, and one was gone, the next one was visible and arose. That, to me, speaks to the fact that there is an ongoing need for universal freedom accounts to serve all those caps or children that are falling underneath that stack of hats. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. We're discussing Floor Amendment 0887. Is there any further discussion? Senator Altschiller to speak for the second time.
Thank you, Madam President. Just need to clarify, in speaking about the caps, perhaps the analogy was not clear enough. The caps are not representative of the children. They're actually representative of the actual cap, the cap in this bill, not the kids. Cap is a cap is a cap. And when you take off a cap and there's another one underneath, just like this bill, you take it off, we're going to raise it and we'll find some more. The cap is about a cap.
Okay. Thank you. We're currently discussing Floor Amendment 0887. Is there any further discussion on the proposed floor amendment? Okay. Seeing none.
Second.
Okay, a roll call has been called by Senator Altschiller, seconded by Senator Avard. Okay, the clerk will call the question.
Senator Rochefort?
No.
Senator Lang?
Nope.
Senator McConkey?
No.
Senator Waters?
Yes.
Senator Prentiss?
Yes.
Senator Gray?
No.
Senator Innes?
No.
Senator Ward?
No.
Senator Ricciardi?
No.
Senator Fenton?
Yes.
Senator McGough?
Nope.
Senator Avard?
No.
Senator Rosenwald?
Yes.
Senator Reardon? Senator Murphy?
No.
Senator Pearl?
Nope.
Senator Sullivan?
No.
Senator Birdsell?
No.
Senator Long?
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coca?
Yes.
Senator Abbas?
No.
Senator Gannon?
No.
Senator Altschiller?
Yes.
And Senator Carson?
No. The noes have it by a vote of 8-6, and the floor amendment fails. Oh, excuse me, 8-16. Okay, the question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Senator Prentiss.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to introduce Floor Amendment 2025-0886S. The purpose of this amendment is to reorder the priority of the incomes, specifically the lower incomes families, for eligibility once the cap is met. As I understand it from the floor amendment, not the floor amendment, from the committee amendment, when we hit the cap, using the order that is prescribed, item D puts a student whose family is already enrolled, is less than or equal to 350%, which is the eligibility criteria that we use right now. That is number 4. which means that that is last on the list, where we should move this up. And in my amendment, I have it number 2 on the list, so that starting with a student who's currently enrolled in the EFA program, again, once we hit the cap, and then the second, a student whose family income is less than or equal to the 350%, and then following by a sibling who is currently enrolled in the EFA program, and a child with disabilities. So that's number 1 in terms of reordering. Number 2, pointing out the sibling of a child that is already in the program, as we have discussed many times, and it's sometimes hard. It's hard for me to believe that I've been here for 5 years, but for 5 years, we've been having this same conversation about eligibility. So if there is no eligibility check, and my sister Sarah, I actually do have a sister Sarah, and there were 6 in my family, and she is already in the program, and my family's income has increased above that level, then that means she could come in, and any of my other brothers and sisters, including all 6 of us. So I think it's important for us to understand that we are opening this door. When we remove that, when we look at the cap, we're doing 2 things. And we need to make sure that if we're going to do this, that the lower income children are prioritized, and that when we're talking about siblings, the unintended consequence of this is that siblings of families who are well exceeding the eligibility criteria down the line could continue to come in this program unchecked. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I urge my colleagues to join me in adopting 0886S. I think I need new glasses because these numbers over 5 years have been getting smaller. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of the floor amendment 0886. Is there any further discussion? Senator Lang?
Madam President, I'm going to rise in opposition to the floor amendment again. I think families matter, and keeping families together matter. And the order in the committee amendment, I think, is appropriate, keeping families together. Thank you.
Again, the question is on the adoption of floor amendment number 0886. Are you ready for the question? Okay, Senator Altschiller has requested a roll call, seconded by Senator Fenton. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort?
No.
Senator Lang?
Nope.
Senator McConkey?
No.
Senator Waters?
Yes.
Senator Prentiss?
Yes.
Senator Gray?
No.
Senator Innes? Senator Ward? Senator Ricciardi?
No.
Senator Fenton?
Yes.
Senator McGough?
Nope.
Senator Avard?
No.
Senator Rosenwald? Senator Reardon?
Yes.
Senator Murphy?
No.
Senator Pearl?
No.
Senator Sullivan?
No.
Senator Birdsell?
No.
Senator Long? Senator Perkins Quokka?
Yes.
Senator Abbas?
No.
Senator Gannon?
No.
Senator Altschiller?
Yes.
And Senator Carson?
No. The noes have it by a vote of 8 to 16. The floor amendment fails. Okay. The question now is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 295. Are you ready for the question? Roll call. Okay, roll call has been requested by Senator Avard, seconded by Senator Birdsell. It's Senator Murphy. We'll just put Senator Murphy. Thought I heard your voice in there somewhere, Senator. Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay. The Senate will pay attention to the clerk.
Senator Rochefort?
Yes.
Senator Lang?
Yes.
Senator McConkey?
Yes.
Senator Waters?
Nope.
Senator Prentiss?
No.
Senator Gray?
Yes.
Senator Innes?
Yes.
Senator Ward?
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi?
Yes.
Senator Fenton?
No.
Senator McGough?
Yes.
Senator Avard?
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald? Senator Reardon?
No.
Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Pearl?
Yes.
Senator Sullivan?
Yes.
Senator Birdsell?
Yes.
Senator Long?
No.
Senator Perkins Quokka?
No.
Senator Abbas?
Yes.
Senator Gannon?
Yes.
Senator Altschiller?
No.
And Senator Carson?
Yes. Okay. The motion passes. by a vote of 16 to 8. And the committee is, and it's ordered to the Committee on Finance. Okay. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Election Law and Municipal Affairs, to which was referred Senate Bill 213 FN, an act relative to absentee voting. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 3 to 2. Senator Gray for the committee.
Senator Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 213 ought to pass. Senate Bill 213 would clarify the standard for absentee voting by adding the term, it is more likely than not that a voter will be absent on election day. It also requires proof of identity and citizenship, age, and domicile when registering to vote and applying for an absentee ballot. The state of New Hampshire current standards for voting by absentee ballot often confuse voters, leaving some eligible voters unsure if they qualify. Adding the term, it is more likely than not, would help clarify this confusion. Requiring the presentation of proof of identity, age, citizenship, or domicile when registering to vote while applying for an absentee ballot will strengthen the election security by ensuring only eligible voters receive a ballot. This access for qualified voters. For these reasons, Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee asks for your support on the motion of ought to pass on Senate Bill 213, and if I might continue, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Senator Gray.
This bill started out with trying to make the absentee voting aligned with the voting requirements for identity, citizenship, etc., with the ones where you're voting in person. I was also asked by many people throughout the years, well, gee, I don't know that I'm going to have to work overtime. I don't know that this trip isn't going to get canceled. I don't know, and that's putting in the criteria, which is what it really is. Is it more likely than not that you're going to be eligible to vote? Yes or no? The other, right now in the statute, if you go in and request an absentee ballot, you don't have to provide identity. And again, that is contrary to what we have passed over the last several years. And if you're registering to vote, you should prove all four. I call it the acid test. A for age, C for citizenship, I for identity, and D for domicile, okay? And that's what this bill does. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Senator Perkins-Coca.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to the ought to pass motion on SB 213. And while my friend from District 6 and I may go back and forth on many things, there are some pieces of this bill we can agree on. More likely than not is a logical standard by which to qualify. However, adding requirements into when we apply for an absentee ballot, unfortunately, is not one of them. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, only 4 states require additional identification in the absentee ballot application process. This bill would have us become the 5th, despite testimony detailing that the administrative and somewhat duplicative burden and potential voter suppression this legislation would cause. As a reminder, a voter must now show proof of citizenship when registering to vote under last year's HB 1569 if they are same-day registrant. We heard from the New Hampshire Association of Counties in opposition to this bill, citing documentation issues that would arise in county facilities for folks that are still eligible to vote, including nursing homes that would need hundreds of absentee ballots. We heard from America Votes that when Kansas implemented similar legislation requiring citizenship requirements, over 30,000 duly eligible voters were turned away. Unfortunately, just yesterday, we have already heard of 46 people that were turned away from the polls when attempting to vote, including a mother with 2 young kids. And we heard as well that there have not been any cases of the New Hampshire Attorney General investigating someone's citizenship affidavit who turned out not to be a citizen. The unintended consequences of this bill simply outweigh whatever good intent may be behind it. It will add burdens to hardworking Granite Staters, folks in nursing homes, and other county facilities. In committee, I brought an amendment that would streamline citizenship verification without these unintended consequences, and I appreciate some openness from my colleagues to continue to explore this. We have better ways to get at what this legislation is trying to accomplish, and I urge my colleagues to vote against the ought-to-pass motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on Senate Bill 213. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Election Law and Municipal Affairs, to which is referred Senate Bill 214, an act enabling no excuse absentee registration and voting. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3-2. Senator Gray for the committee.
Senator Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 214, inexpedient to legislate. Senate Bill 214 would enable no excuse absentee voting. New Hampshire current absentee voting registration laws already do a good job by accommodating voters who need to vote by absentee ballot. Expanding the current eligibility requirements for absentee voting increases the risk of voter fraud and threatens the integrity of our elections. For those reasons, the Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee asks for your support in a motion of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 214. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any discussion? Senator Perkins-Croka.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition of the motion of inexpedient to legislate for SB 214. Again, as a reminder, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw over 800,000 people vote absentee without any significant issues in New Hampshire. Our state has successfully navigated absentee voting and proven that can be done safely, securely, and efficiently. New Hampshire has always taken pride in the integrity of our elections, and we must continue to ensure that our citizens have the fundamental right to vote. The passage of SB 214 would ensure that we remove any barriers for people who are unsure if they meet certain criteria in obtaining their absentee ballot. We'll hope to create a system that encourages participation, not one that inadvertently discourages it by making it unnecessarily complicated or inaccessible. I also understand that some of my colleagues have raised concerns regarding the inclusion of certain language in our Constitution as part of this issue, and I would assure my colleagues that I would be more than happy to work with them on a constitutional amendment to fix this issue if we have the votes together. For these reasons, I urge my colleagues to reconsider the committee's recommendation of inexpedient to legislate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there? Okay, there's been a roll call asked for. Senator Birdsall and Senator Avard. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Senator Rochefort?
Yes.
Senator Lang?
Yes.
Senator McConkey?
Yes.
Senator Waters?
No.
Senator Prentiss?
No.
Senator Gray?
Yes.
Senator Innes?
Yes.
Senator Ward?
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi?
Yes.
Senator Fenton?
No.
Senator McGough?
Yes.
Senator Avard?
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald?
No.
Senator Rereferend?
No.
Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Pearl?
Yes.
Senator Sullivan?
Yes.
Senator Birdsall?
Yes.
Senator Long?
No.
Senator Perkins-Croka?
No.
Senator Abbas?
Yes.
Senator Gannon?
Yes.
Senator Altschiller?
No.
Senator Carson?
Yes. The ayes have it by a vote of 16-8. The motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Health and Human Services, to which was referred Senate Bill 130 FN, an act relative to insurance reimbursement for ambulance services. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 5-0. Senator Rochefort for the committee.
Senator Rochefort.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 130 FN ought to pass with amendment. As amended, this bill established a commission to study delivery models for emergency medical services in the state of New Hampshire. The purpose of this commission is to complete a comprehensive assessment of emergency medical service delivery models throughout the state, identify common problems and their possible solutions, and understand what role, if any, the state should play in this area. The Senate Health and Human Services Committee asks for your support on the motion of ought to pass with amendment on Senate Bill 130 FN. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Okay, seeing none. The question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Right. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 130. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass as amended is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Health and Human Services, to which was referred Senate Bill 249 FN, an act relative to uncompensated care and Medicaid fund. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 3-2. Senator Birdsall for the committee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Senate Bill 249 FN revises the funding mechanism for uncompensated care costs under the state Medicaid program, including the distribution of the disproportionate share hospital payment for an additional 7 years. The House, Senate, and Governor have been trying to find a consensus with New Hampshire hospitals over the Medicaid enhancement tax and disproportionate share hospital. That today's vote is not Senate's final position on either the share of Met revenues that are distributed through the DISH program or the length of extension. All we are doing today is keeping the bill alive so that the negotiations can continue. Please support the ought to pass in order to keep this process moving forward. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Senator Birdsall.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move Amendment 2025-0915S and speak to my motion.
You may.
Thank you, Madam President. This is an amendment that we are putting forward. What it does, instead of the 80%, the 80%, 80-20 share, we are upping it to equal to 91% of the money. And what this amendment also does is it not only increases it to 91%, but it also is only for 2 years, because it creates a study committee so that we can try and get this problem solidified and a permanent solution. So I ask you to support 2025-0915S. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of floor amendment number 0915. Are there any questions? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you to my colleague from District 19 for moving the ball down the field. I do have some concerns about the proposed floor amendment. It's certainly an improvement over the underlying bill, but it continues to be problematic. In fact, the Senate Finance Committee considered this exact proposal last year, and we decided not to bring it forward to the body. So let's be clear about this. We need our hospitals to be financially viable so they can deliver the high-quality services and care Granite Staters expect and deserve. And let's not also forget, we are the second fastest aging state in the country, so we're going to need more of that care, and quickly. The proposed 91% return to the hospitals of their tax payment will mean a financial shock to our entire healthcare system. And it's not just inpatient hospital services, but also outpatient services will be affected. Furthermore, since most doctors are now hospital employees, their jobs might be on the line with less money being returned to the hospitals. And this floor amendment represents still a big financial shock. Collectively, the 13 larger hospitals in the state, the ones that deliver most of the care we all rely on, will stand to lose $60 million collectively in funding this fiscal year from this 91% return of their tax payments. That group of hospitals includes Cheshire Medical Center, Concord Hospital in Franklin, Concord Hospital in Laconia, Dartmouth Hitchcock, Elliott, Frisbee, Parkland, Portsmouth, St. Joseph's in Nashua, and Southern New Hampshire Medical Center, also in Nashua, and Wentworth Douglas in Dover. Our constituents do not want to face longer wait times for important cancer screenings, surgeries, cardiac procedures, or even a hospital bed when they need it. That will worsen people's health and increase the overall cost of care. So, Madam President, we need to keep working for a viable solution. I look forward to continuing to work on this when it gets to finance, as I expect it will, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Senator. The discussion is on Amendment 0915. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Senator Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. Certainly, the two members that have spoken before me on this bill are both members of the Finance Committee, and this bill will be going to Finance. I've been involved in these negotiations for the past 2 years with the expiration of the last policy and what we were trying to get to. Certainly, what happens right now is that, in my opinion, there should be one person negotiating this for the state, either in conjunction with the House and the Senate or some other combination. There should not be an expectation from the hospitals or anyone else that they're going to be able to shop around for a different solution with a different group, because all that does is negotiate against ourselves. When this goes to Senate, and I expect that it will pass today and go to the Senate Finance, that percentage, bringing it to 91, I look at that as a good faith effort to say, hospitals, this is where we can reach an agreement. But it can go back down to the 80. It can go to any number that we negotiate. Just keep that in mind as you vote, that the percentage that's in here today may not be the final percentage. And that some of the proposals that we have had about taking the tax from 5.4%, which in the past has been approved by Washington at up to 6%, that what the hospitals requested of us was they get all the money back from the increase of 0.6% in the tax, but they also get every dollar of match that increase generated. It's unacceptable to me. So I encourage you to pass this amendment as it is. We will take it into Senate Finance. Hopefully the governor will continue her negotiations with the hospitals, and that we can all come out of that room in a couple of weeks with a good decision. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of Floor Amendment 0915. Senator, okay. Are you ready for the question? All in favor of Floor Amendment 0915, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is adopted. The bill is still on second reading and open for further discussion and amendment. Is there any further discussion? Okay. The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 249. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted, and the bill is ordered to the Committee on Finance. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred Senate Bill 144FN, an act authorizing the state to report mental health data for firearms background check purposes and providing the processes for confiscation of firearms following certain mental health-related court proceedings and for relief from mental health-related firearms disabilities. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3-1. Senator Abbas for the committee.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 144-FN inexpedient to legislate. Senate Bill 144 would require the state of New Hampshire to notify the FBI to update the National Instant Criminal Background Check System of certain adjudications, namely involuntary commitments, determined insanity, or determined incompetence. For individuals subject to the aforementioned adjudications, the court may order the confiscation or relocation of any firearms that they may have access to. Members of the committee expressed concerns regarding self-incrimination, the evidentiary standards necessary for confiscation, and the remittance respectively, and the potential for unintended collateral for the law-abiding gun owners cohabitating with individuals subject to this proposal. I respectfully ask you to join me in supporting the motion of inexpedient to legislate. Thank you, Madam President, and may I speak further?
Yes, Senator.
You know, we saw last term there was this exact same bill with the exact same issues in the same unanswered questions. The biggest concern that I raised, that a person subject to this, if this were to pass, it discusses firearms that are owned or have access to. Now, the problem that creates is by merely having access to something doesn't mean you have any ownership of that firearm, which is someone else's property. And that could be ordered to be surrendered by the court. And therefore, that property owner, who's not even named in the case, they're not a party they're not involved in the court proceedings, would be required to have their property surrendered. Now, the other issue this creates, that it requires the court to inquire whether the person owns or have access to any firearms. Now, the issue that by compelling a response to that question, if the court is requiring a response to be made, if the person in that scenario happens to be in the illegal possession of a firearm, which I'm not advocating for that, however, you are forcing self-incrimination, which is a blatant Fifth Amendment violation. You have the right to not have to self-incriminate yourself, and that this is requiring that. And that is unconstitutional. It's clear as day in our Constitution, and it's unacceptable. You have the right to not incriminate yourself, and that would require it while you're under oath in a courtroom to have you incriminate yourself. And from what I see, this is the most blatant violation of that I've ever seen in any piece of legislation. There are some other issues that remain unanswered. There's an issue involving ATF certifications, where they have to actually certify the procedure to remove someone from the NICS database if they were to be entered into it. For the third time in a row, we provided no information. The committee was never provided any information on the certification process and the guidelines that go into that. And therefore, I don't believe we were provided the information that was asked in prior hearings or, for this current legislation. For this reason, I would raise another point. There are people who live in this state who have been entered into the NICS database because of mental health issues. However, we're being told that there's no way to enter people into the NICS database in the first place when you have these issues. Again, we have not been provided any information on how those people who apparently cannot be entered into the NICS database, how they got in there if there's no way to get them into the NICS. And again, this is a very important unanswered question, and I would welcome anyone to please to provide that information at any time. Given the concerns I raised on the constitutional issues, obviously the third party who's not involved in this, that's the whole access to issue, that's a clear due process violation. So given the constitutional concerns that I have with this proposed legislation, please join me, support the committee's recommendation of inexpedient to legislate. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Senator Altschiller.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in strong opposition to the ITL motion on Senate Bill 144, and let me acknowledge it's deja vu all over again. But last summer, on August 22nd of 2024, the Attorney General released their final report regarding the November 17, 2023 officer-involved shooting at Concord Hospital. It's a 44-page report hopefully everyone has already read, and I draw your attention to page 24. Quote, investigators confirmed that Mador purchased the recovered SCCY Industries CPX-2 9mm pistol on February 22nd, 2020, from a gun dealer in Barrington, New Hampshire, after affirming that he had never been committed to a mental institution when answering question 11F on a firearms transaction record. And there is a picture of that. Mador's answer to question 11F, affirming that he had never been adjudicated as a mental defective or committed to a mental institution. Patient records from New Hampshire Hospital indicate Mador was admitted to the hospital for inpatient treatment for 13 days in February 2016, and then again in May of 2016 and March of 2017. Publicly available court records indicate Mador was facing several felony charges in Stratford County Superior Court around this time, and that his competency to stand trial had been raised before he was ultimately found not competent to stand trial. That is directly from the AG's report. And respectfully, I ask you to reflect on that. He was committed to inpatient mental health treatment and was facing felony charges, and the court determined that he was incompetent to stand trial. But the state of New Hampshire believes that he and others like him are competent to purchase firearms. Make that make sense. Senate Bill 144 has one intention, narrowly tailored to close this one gap in our current law, something that 47 other states already have in place. This bill is language some of you have seen before in the form of House Bill 1711 from 2024. There is no change from that language in this Senate Bill 144 because the language was carefully written with input and review from the Attorney General's office to make sure that it complies with applicable state and federal laws and is constitutional. And stakeholders from across New Hampshire came together to carefully craft this language. New Hampshire hospital staff who were traumatized by the murder in their place of work. NAMI New Hampshire, the New Hampshire Disability Rights Center, and the New Hampshire Psychiatric Society. The bill has three major parts. First, it authorizes the New Hampshire judicial branch to be the single reporting entity to the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check System. Second, it authorizes the court to only report people whose cases have been adjudicated by the courts under three very specific separate circumstances, which are their case involves involuntary mental health commitment. Their case is where a person who has been accused of a crime has been found not competent to stand trial. And the court has found that their illness could make them a danger to themselves and to others. And third, when a person on trial has been found not guilty by reason of insanity. Finally, this bill has a process to restore a person's firearm rights. This relief from disability provision gives a person prohibited from purchasing or possessing a firearm under the statute the right to a hearing and the right to legal representation within 60 days after a petition for relief has been filed. I acknowledge this is an uncomfortable issue for all of us for very different reasons. I also truly believe that we can enter into this meaningful debate in good faith, recognizing that the roadblocks of yesterday may not be the same ones of today. And additionally, while our personal experiences certainly inform our viewpoints, our job here in this sacred space we have been sent to by thousands of Granite Staters is to do the most good for our state. This legislative session, this body has seen fit to make quite a few very incremental changes to our laws in the name of violence prevention and public safety. And I ask that we apply that same energy here. And I'd like to address the accusations of not including all voices. That holds the same veracity as the belief that Charlie Brown holds in believing Lucy will someday let him kick the football. It's a specious argument to a deadly serious public safety discussion. Should any of the self-proclaimed and widely advertised no-compromise firearm advocacy groups wish to engage in meaningful, serious discussion, then they are absolutely welcome to the table to talk about firearm violence prevention. There is nothing stopping them from participating in meaningful discussion other than their own acclamations of being no compromise. The safety gap in our laws, being the non-reporting to NICS, may have already cost the life of a man whose life was devoted to public safety. And I ask you, my colleagues, with deep respect for our constituents and in good faith with the strongest possible urging, to please overturn the ITL motion so that another potentially life-saving motion can be made. Thank you, Madam President.
Excuse me. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 144. Senator Gannon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really brief. I always root for Charlie Brown every time. Sometime he might get it. But besides that, there were 5 points that I saw. I read this bill many times. And we've listened to it for years. Senator Abbas got most of the points. One was the access, that they could take people's guns away. They're going to take your guns with a preponderance of evidence. To get them back, you need clear and convincing evidence, much harder standard. As Senator Abbas said, it's going to be very hard to get off, I should say, District 23. Get off that next list. There's no guarantees that the feds, even though we might request it, will ever take you off that list. On page 2, line 20, the senator said from 24, said you do have an affirmative duty to answer honestly, and you do when the court asks you, but it, as Senator Abbas said, it's going to lead you to possibly self-incriminating yourself. Big problem. On page 2 and page 3, it mentioned they may not take your guns for up to 48 hours. If you're an incompetent, dangerous person, it shouldn't leave this wiggle room. That should be taken out also. So for these and other reasons, we ask that you kill this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 114. Is there any further discussion?
Roll call.
Okay, a roll call has been requested by Senator Altschiller, seconded by Senator Fenton. Yeah, I know.
We gotta be done.
Well, yep. Okay. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentiss. No. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Rishardi.
Yes.
Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McGough.
Yes.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long. No. Senator Perkins Quokka.
No.
Senator Abbas.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altschiller.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Yes. The ayes have it by a vote of 16 to 8, and the motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred, CACR 8, an act relating to sheriffs providing that no person shall hold the office of county sheriff after he or she has attained the age of 75 years. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 4-0. Senator Abbas for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. On behalf of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I move CACR 8 ought to pass. The constitutional amendment before the chamber today is vital to the state's law enforcement agencies, officers alike. Normally, upon reaching 70 years of age, the New Hampshire Constitution prohibits an individual from serving as our county sheriff. While that may have been appropriate when it was incorporated back in 1792, today it results in qualified, committed community servants being disqualified from service. Sheriffs are elected officials, and therefore it is not only wrong but unproductive for the Constitution to arbitrarily vacate those offices despite the candidate's public approval or extensive experience. So please join the Senate Judiciary Committee in furnishing our law enforcement agencies with the sufficient leadership, and please vote in favor of the pending motion for the constitutional amendment before you today. Thank you, Madam President. If I just may speak briefly as well.
Yes, you may speak, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President. We had a similar CACR last year that involved the age of judges. And a lot of people say, oh, this just follows it. Big difference. Judges are appointed, and it's a lifetime appointment. I'm not a doctor, but I hear we all age differently. But if there's any issues you have with the competency of someone, they have a lifetime appointment that's set in the Constitution. The county sheriff is elected every 2, or in some counties, 4 years. If someone had any competency questions, that's left to the voters to decide. Also, with law enforcement recruitment issues, I can't imagine us forcing a qualified, experienced county leader to be forced into retirement when they're doing an excellent job keeping us safe and maintaining the safest state in the country. So please join me in support the motion on approving CACR 8. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Okay. At this point, before we vote, I'd like to remind everybody, because this is a CACR, we need 3/5 of the entire membership voting in favor of the CACR, which would be 15. Okay, the clerk will call the roll.
Everybody's in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's here. Yep, she came in the door.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentiss.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Rishardi. Senator Fenton.
Yes.
Senator McGough.
Yes.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald. Senator Reardon.
Yes.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yes.
Senator Abbas.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altschiller.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Yes. The ayes have it. 21 in favor, 3 against. That meets the meets the 3/5 requirement. And thank you. Okay. Oh, excuse me. It's ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Transportation, to which was referred, Senate Bill 151 FN, an act relative to accessible parking permit verification and fraud prevention. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 5-0. Senator Fenton for the committee.
Senator Fenton?
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 151 ought to pass with amendment. This bill would require that walking disability placards contain certain driver's license information, creates a penalty for drivers who park in restricted parking spaces without displaying their placard, and increases fines for parking in restricted spaces without a placard. This is a small amendment to delete section, there is a small amendment to delete section 4 and renumber the original section 5 to read as 4. Therefore, the committee moves that this ought to pass with amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Okay. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Senator Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. The bill has increases the fine from $250 to $500. I think that with inflation, that is probably okay. But the section that it adds down below, that if an older person or a person with a disability, walking disability, forgets to put their placard up, it would fine them $100. So when I got the warning about 3 or 4 weeks ago, my wife and I pulled into one of the handicap spots. I forgot to put my placard up. We were having a conversation about what we were going to have for dinner or whatever it was. We go in the store, I come back, and there's a little pink slip on my windshield. Okay, it said warning. All right? And after speaking with the police chief in Rochester, he says, well, what we normally do is if somebody comes in with a ticket and they show their placard, we just rip up the ticket and go on about our business. But I don't have any problem with some kind of a minimal fine if I forget. That'll help me remember next time. So what you see in the amendment is a way to do that and have that be a maximum fine of $5. And I'd gladly pay it if I forget to put my placard up at some time in the future. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Abbas would like to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to the floor amendment that my colleague is offering. Understand, as the law is written today, if a person fails to hang their placard on, they're going to face the full penalty. That is currently $250 that we're increasing to $500. Now, I understand in talking to a few different police chiefs in my district that if they find out the person has a placard, they just toss out the ticket. That's what happens. However, that person's still going to now have a $500 fine. So I thought it was important to have a separate penalty that's much, much lower than the existing law today. However, $5 I think is way too low because although I didn't do the research on what the administrative cost is to process such a fine, I'm going to just assume it's more than $5. So it's one thing to remove that provision all the way. I still think the main premise of this was increasing the penalty for parking in the handicap space illegally. That's been a problem that I see throughout my district. I've had constituents who have family members that are in wheelchairs and they can't park anywhere. They can't go to the grocery store, and at times they have called the police. It takes a long time to get there. There's a lot of resources that were being put into this, and I would just say to have a $5 fine as this. Keep in mind when the ticket's being issued, they don't know you have a placard. If they did, and they can see it and you just didn't hang it properly, I don't think that is what's going to happen here, because they can see the placard. If you don't hang it up, you're likely going to get the $500 fine. This allows it to be reduced. Now, or if they don't want to toss it out, which I keep hearing, and apparently everyone else who's consulted with the chief says they get tossed out, but if for some reason you came into a scenario where it wasn't, I think a $100 fine is more than reasonable, but I think $5 is just way too low. So I'm going to be opposing the proposed floor amendment. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Senator. The question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Is there any further discussion or further amendments? Senator Gannon.
Thank you, Madam.
Oh, excuse me. No,
President.
I said the question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Okay, sorry. It's been a long day, folks. There you go. Go ahead, Senator Gannon, please speak.
I just want to say that I have forgotten to put the placard up several times. $5 may be de minimis. $100 is a lot. I serve on the Commission for Aging. I've talked about it with a lot of people who have also forgot. That $100 is going to be a great imposition on our seniors in the state. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of Floor Amendment 0913S. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no? No. Okay, the ayes have it. The floor amendment is adopted. The bill is still on second reading and open for further discussion and amendment. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 151. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Ways and Means, to which it was referred, Senate Bill 83FN, an act establishing an elderly, disabled, blind, and deaf property tax exemption reimbursement fund, authorizing video lottery terminals, renaming the Lottery Commission, creating a voluntary statewide self-exclusion database. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is sought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 3-2. Senator Lang for the committee.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, I move Senate Bill 83FN ought to pass with amendment. Senate Bill 83 authorizes video lottery terminals at facilities licensed to conduct charitable gaming. It established an elderly, disabled, blind, and deaf property tax exemption fund, which would provide reimbursements to municipalities. It creates a statewide self-exclusion list to combat problem gaming and renames the State Lottery Commission the State Lottery and Gaming Commission in order to better reflect the fact that charitable gaming oversight has become a large part of the Lottery Commission's work. Currently, New Hampshire does not allow VLTs, which are more commonly known as slot machines. New Hampshire currently has historical horse racing machines, which are virtually identical to slot machines in appearance, but carry a higher operational cost. The commission that studied charitable gaming this past year found that slot machines operational costs, historic horse racing slot machines have a cost of around 18 to 12% higher than slot machines. The introduction of slot machines reduce the operational costs and provide increased revenue for both the operators, the charities, as well as the state. The Elderly, Disabled, Blind, and Deaf Property Tax Exemption Fund is established to reimburse municipalities for the cost of those tax credits and exemptions we give to the elderly and to reduce the cost shifting to other property taxpayers within that community. Another recommendation from the Charitable Gaming Study Commission was the establishment of a statewide voluntary exclusion list. Currently, if someone walks into a charitable game facility and asked to be on the exclusion list, don't let me gamble because I have a problem, nobody knows about any other facility within the state. This would allow for a database that would allow all charitable gaming operators to know, regardless of where you self-exclude, and including our online sports gaming as well as our iLottery program. If you exclude, your name would be added to the exclusionary list and you wouldn't be allowed to gamble in our charitable gaming facilities. It is anticipated that there will be 4,300 slot machines across the state if this bill passes over the next 3 years. There will be significant revenue increase due to the new facilities coming online and the growth of the existing operators. The committee amendment adjusts the tax rate from 40% to 35% of gross revenue. It also adjusts the maximum bet wager from $25 to $50. S. Bill 83 keeps charities whole with the 35% of the gross revenue being collected still going to the charity. The state portion would be distributed as follows. 25% would continue to go to education to be able to keep education whole. 25% would go to the reimbursement fund for municipalities. 50% would go to the general fund to fix the Group 2 retirement issue that's in the governor's budget. I ask for your support on a motion of ought to pass with amendment. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Okay, seeing none. The question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I rise in opposition to Senate Bill 83. We have a problem with addictions in New Hampshire, and I have several concerns about this bill. One of my primary issues lies with the lack of provisions in the bill for speed limits mechanisms on the slot machines. By instituting speed limits, we could promote more responsible gambling behavior, reducing the risk of impulsive or excessive play. Slowing down the pace of the game encourages players to make better, more deliberate decisions, which would be critical for preventing harmful gambling habits. Slot machine gambling carries several characteristics that are linked to a heightened risk of addiction. These include the continuous nature of play, the high frequency of events, and the visual and auditory cues that constantly engage players. The price and prize structure also plays a role, as does tokenization, which removes the physicality of money and can desensitize players to their spending. Additional features such as losses disguised as wins further distort players' perceptions of their losses. Researchers have also highlighted the immersive environment that slot machines create, which can draw players into a trance-like state, often described as the zone. In this state, players lose track of both time and money, seeking to escape the stresses of life while pursuing the next spin. Additionally, and separately, it's unclear what additional revenues will come from this legislation. Historic horse racing is estimated to bring in somewhere between $30 and $40 million this fiscal year. The governor's budget estimated $117 million when slot machines would be fully implemented in the second year. but that was at a considerably higher tax rate. So it would be difficult to know what revenue would actually look like to support the worthy beneficiaries of slot machines. And while I recognize the importance of supporting Group 2 retirement, and I have consistently throughout my 21 years in the legislature, and I recognize the importance of the financial goals of this bill, it's equally essential that we think of the well-being of Granite Staters. Without the necessary safeguards that this bill does not contain, we could be putting many of our residents at risk. So for these reasons, I'm going to have to oppose Senate Bill 83. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended. Senator Waters would like to speak. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator.
Yeah. For Senator
you
from
have a
District
question
2?
of, okay, there you go.
Thanks for taking my question. So could you offer some words on if we're reducing the cost of operation of the machines, why are we then reducing the take to the charitable organizations from 40 to 35?
Thank you for the question. So I think we're at a little bit of confusion going on there. So the current tax rate for historic horse racing is 25%, and it has the operational expense of 12 to 18%, depending on the operating contract and all that kind of thing. We're not changing, and the split of the revenue that's taken out of the 25% is, I'm sorry, for slot machines, the split that's taken at 35%, that split's exactly the same as the current law, which is 35% to charities, 65% to the state of that 35% tax that we impose. So there's no loss to the charities. As a matter of fact, just in the last 2 weeks, we've had two major new facilities go online, one in Rochester, where I was at with Senator Gray, and then also down in Nashua, the Nash was online. Between those two facilities, they added an additional 1,300 machines to New Hampshire's list. This is where a large portion of the new revenue. There are two major facilities going online, again, one in Salem and one in Hampton Beach, both of which are expected to be around 1,000 machines as well. So in the charitable gaming operators, in the charitable gaming study committee, it was estimated what those numbers would look like. And again, we're going to see significant increases in revenue going to both our charities and to the state of New Hampshire. The reason we reduced the tax rate is to keep the percentage of revenue going to the operator the same as historic horse racing. So they're equal.
Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 83. Is there any further comments? Senator Murphy.
Madam President, I've got a restaurant on Elm Street in Manchester. I have a jukebox in that restaurant. I pay the city of Manchester a fee of $25 a year. For many years, there was a restaurant at the corner of Granite and Elm about 2 blocks away called Greg's Place. Now, Greg's Place isn't there anymore. But I will tell you, they had a number of machines in the front of that restaurant. It said, for entertainment only. You know what the city of Manchester charges per machine? $1,000. Why do you think that is? It's a wink and a nod. We won't enforce the law, and you go ahead and pay out on those machines. And I saw it happen repeatedly when I walked into that place. You see why I picked a place that's no longer in business. I have no problem with slot machines. I voted for them repeatedly. I do have a problem with monopolies. I've got a problem with violating my oath to the state constitution, which says free and fair competition is an inherent right of the people. We are making 13 companies a lot of money. 14 locations. 13 of them are based out of state. Greg didn't live out of state. We are harming our local people to benefit people elsewhere by granting them continued monopolies, first on HHR and now on slot machines. We want to legalize slot machines, that's fine. I have no problem. I don't share my colleagues' concern about addiction. I just don't. It's not my issue. But we continue to make the same few people wealthy at the expense of others that live here. So I have to be a no on this vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 83. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The motion ought to pass as amended is adopted in order to the Committee on Finance. Okay, we are at the conclusion of the regular calendar, and we'll take up bills that were removed from the consent calendar. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred Senate Bill 33FN, an act relative to the regulation of public school materials. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill be re-referred to committee by a vote of 4 to 1. Senator Ward for the committee.
Senator Ward.
Thank you, Madam President. SB 33FN requires local school districts to adopt and publicly post policies outlining materials authorized for student use and procedures for addressing complaints regarding content deemed harmful or age inappropriate. The bill establishes a formal complaint resolution process, including an appeal to the local school board. I would like to ask you all, my colleagues, to vote down the motion of re-refer so that I may offer another motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ward. The motion is currently on the table to re-refer to committee. Senator Ward has asked us to vote down that motion of re-refer so she can offer an ought to pass. Is there any discussion? Senator Prentiss.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to continue to support the motion of re-refer for a few reasons. One is, in committee, this was a place where there was agreement and disagreement, but the one agreement we were able to come to at the end was to re-refer this, because I think re-refer is a valuable tool when there is work still to be done and there is enough agreement that we can get ourselves there. And that, I believe, was the intent of the committee. I think it is reflected in the vote, although it wasn't, like straight across 5-0. There was enough agreement that we had work to do. It's one of those times where we came together and said, okay, re-refer is a gift. Let's continue the work on this and see where we end up. So I support the motion to re-refer, as I did in committee, and I ask my colleagues to stay with re-refer. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The current motion is to re-refer to committee. Senator Ward has made a request that we vote down the re-refer, so she might offer an alternative motion. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of re-refer to committee on Senate Bill 33. Are you ready for the question? All in favor of the re-refer motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. No. Okay, the chair is in question. Is there a request? Senator Avard calls for a roll call. Senator Birdsall seconds. Okay, the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
No.
Senator Lang.
No.
Senator McConkey.
No.
Senator Waters.
Yes.
Senator Prentiss.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
No.
Senator Innes.
No.
Senator Ward.
No.
Senator Ricciardi.
No.
Senator Fenton.
Yes.
Senator McGough.
No.
Senator Avard.
No.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Reardon.
Yes.
Senator Murphy.
No.
Senator Pearl.
Nope.
Senator Sullivan.
No.
Senator Birdsall.
No.
Senator Long.
Yes.
Senator Perkins-Coie.
Yes.
Senator Abbas.
No.
Senator Gannon.
No.
Senator Altschiller.
Yes.
And Senator Carson.
No.
So it failed 8-16.
Okay. The motion of re-refer has failed by a vote of 8 to 16. The question, so now that's been turned down, okay. The bill is now on second reading. The question is, okay, is there any discussion or floor amendments? Of the recommendation of ought to pass on Senate Bill 33. Is there any discussion? Senator Altschiller.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to the motion of ought to pass on Senate Bill 33. There is a reason why our committee originally voted to re-refer this legislation. It's not that we don't support schools having policies in place to review school materials. Having a policy will save time and money if and when parents raise concerns. But this bill, with numerous questions and holes, cannot deliver those potential benefits. Hence, a re-refer giving us more time for thoughtful consideration on a statewide policy. For starters, we heard testimony in committee that the timelines established in the current bill would work fine for one request, but quickly inundate schools when multiple requests are made. The School Boards Association submitted amendment language to this effect, language that is not included in this bill. Additionally, many schools already have procedures in place that work at a local level. During the committee hearing, Salem's policy was brought up that has language to ensure a book is not excluded based on race or political ideologies, and to ensure materials present all points of view, not removed from a classroom because of partisan or doctrinal approval or disapproval. This language is crucial so that policy is not weaponized in either direction. Language that is also not found in this bill, hence the re-refer. There is also a security aspect of this bill. The language asks for contested material to be displayed at the front reception desk of the school. Does this not invite charged debate into the school during hours while kids are trying to learn? Why not display it in the public library instead? Why display it? We didn't get a chance to debate this because we recognized this needed to be re-referred. And what about the definitions in this bill? How are we defining harmful or age-appropriate material? I've raised before that some students dealing with complex situations at home might need access to certain resources or materials that may deal with traumatic situations and could be seen as harmful for others. Is it fair? Is it fair to deny access on this basis and inherently doing a disservice to the student who should be able to rely on these resources? For these reasons, and all the reasons identified during the hearing that this needed re-refer, I respectfully ask my colleagues to vote down this motion of ought to pass and reconsider another motion of re-refer. Thank you, Madam President.
Of ought to pass on Senate Bill 33. Is there any further discussion? Senator Avard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam President, sorry. Call you the Dean as well, because you are the Dean of the Senate. This is my bill. I like it the way it is. It's a good bill. It's a good bill, and I think even in the previous testimony where it says there's obviously a problem if the school is overwhelmed with a bunch of material that is coming in all at once, that needs to be brought up into question. Yes, the material is brought in front of the schools so that every parent has a right to look at the material and question. And if they have a problem with it, they're not going to get shot down. You can look all over this country where parents have spoken out at school boards, at local facilities, where they're shot down when they pick up the book and they start reading it. Oh, you can't do that here. Officer, he's being disruptive, she's being disruptive because of the material that's in the school. This empowers the parents to come up and say, I have a problem, Mr. or Madam Principal, this material it could be racist. It could be a number of different things that is very offensive that got into the library or into the school material without their notification. This allows a parent to speak up, show the material to the principal in writing, and ask the principal, can you give me an explanation why this is acceptable? And it has to be done in writing and in public so that everybody can see what's going on to remove any doubt. And if the principal says, hey, listen, I don't see that there's a problem here. The principal puts it in writing. No problem. Then the parent has the ability to appeal to the school board. And the book or the material is placed in the public for all to see so that they can examine themselves while the process of adjudicating of the material goes on. And one of the things I really like about this, it's really good. Every school board member has to sign off saying, hey, this is a good idea. Or no, I have an objection. I know that the school boards don't like it because they're held accountable to the public, and elections matter. And if everybody sees the material that they're approving is out there and it's extremely offensive or not age appropriate or racist or over-sexual, and they approved it, then they can answer to the public. It's a good thing. It's a democracy. I love it. So yes, I think I want to thank my colleague for taking it off of the re-refer. Let's pass it as it is. And yeah, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of the recommendation of ought to pass on Senate Bill 33. Senator Ward has a question of
The good senator from District 13.
12.
Minus one is 12.
Senator,
Yes.
do I have your assurance that you are going to work on this bill and make
Absolutely.
it better?
You have my word.
Because I think there are some things missing, and you have promised that you will work on it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Senator Sullivan to speak.
I have a question for my colleague in District 12. There was a question that said that there's not a definition of age appropriate. Would you believe that age appropriate is continually subjective and that I am actually in this legislature because of something that was put before my child that was deemed age appropriate by the teacher that I was not privy to prior to him seeing it?
I would definitely believe that.
Thank you.
Okay, the question is on the adoption of the recommendation of ought to pass on Senate Bill 33. Senator Altschiller would like to speak for a second time.
Thank you, Madam President. While I'm heartened to hear that my colleague from District 8 is extracting promises from our colleague from District 12 to work on the bill. The whole point of re-refer was to work on the bill. And we have heard absolutely nothing about what will be worked on. And as a matter of fact, have heard an introduction of aspects of this bill that were never introduced at the hearing. So super creative, but also didn't actually happen. So I would love to know exactly, if we could hear exactly what it is that's going to be worked on. Is it going to be what happens when multiple requests come in? How is that going to play out? Well, we can get super loud about democracy and, we want to do this. And if lots of people are objecting, the bill, we are writing policy. So instead of yapping about getting all wild about a particular book, tell us how you're going to do it, because it's not here.
This bill, if it does pass, will actually go to the House. So there will be no further work on this in the Senate, and asking about what they are going to do is inappropriate at this time.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleague from District 6 for pointing out that there is no more opportunity to work on it. So extracting promises of working on it are actually a non-starter. There's no time to work on it. So I would ask this body to overturn the ought to pass and actually work on it like was promised with a re-refer.
Thank you. Senator Ricciardi?
Please.
Okay. The Senate will be in recess for 3 minutes. Out of recess, Senator Avard.
Madam President, I move the question, and I ask for a roll call.
Okay. Second. All right, so we're moving the question, and a roll call has been asked and seconded, asked by Senator Avard, seconded by Senator Lang. Okay. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort?
Yes.
Senator Lang?
Yes.
Senator McConkey?
Yes.
Senator Waters?
Nope.
Senator Prentiss?
No.
Senator Gray?
Yes.
Senator Innes?
Yes.
Senator Ward?
Yes.
Senator Rishardi?
Yes.
Senator Fenton?
No.
Senator McGough?
Yes.
Senator Avard?
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald?
No.
Senator Reardon?
No.
Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Pearl?
Yep.
Senator Sullivan?
Yes.
Senator Birdsell?
Yes.
Senator Long?
No.
Senator Perkins Quokka?
No.
Senator Abbas?
Yes.
Senator Gannon?
Yes.
Senator Altschiller?
No.
And Senator Carson?
Yeah, I know. Yes. The ayes have it, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education Finance, to which was referred Senate Bill 296, an act increasing the percentage of non-public school scholarships awarded to students who qualify for the federal free and reduced price meal program. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 5-0. Senator Ward for the committee.
Senator Ward?
Move to table.
Okay, the move to table is non-debatable. I'm just waiting on you.
Here you go.
Okay. The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor of the motion say aye. 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 All opposed, no? No. The ayes have it. The motion has been adopted. The committee will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, to which was referred Senate Bill 236, an act relative to transferring control of electric assistance program to the Department of Energy. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 5-0. Senator Avard for the committee.
Senator Avard?
Oh, yeah? Excuse me. There you go. Yes. Let's see. SB 236, transfer control of electric assistance programs. I wasn't prepared for this. I apologize. This bill basically ensures the financial aid This bill ensures the financial aid through a small charge of 1.5 mils per kilowatt hour on electric bills. This also gives the Department of Energy the authority over eligibility, benefits, and spending, and ensuring the continued support for low-income electricity consumers. Please vote ought to pass.
Thank you very much, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to introduce floor amendment 0826 and speak to it.
Yes, you may, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill is necessary as we have over the last few years moved to ensure, once we created the Department of Energy, that the appropriate policy making takes place in the Department of Energy and that the PUC then maintains its adjudicative process. And I really commend the committee chair for bringing forward Senate Bill 236. This is such a crucially important program. It expresses the will and policy of the legislature. As we found out a few years ago, we'd better watch very carefully if the PUC is in fact following the will of the legislature. And so this will provide a further clarification and an assurance that the funding to help out these low-income families will be there as the legislature has intended it. After we passed the bill, it was pointed out that while the DOE assumed, and in other parts of statute, it was implied that the DOE and the PUC would discuss the issues around this program, that we really should clarify it in statute. That, as it says here, the commission and the department, and then adds that essential, that just crucial word, shall design programs in a manner that targets assistance and has high operating efficiency so as to maximize the benefits that go to the intended beneficiaries of the low-income program. And why that word shall is so important is that now that in the bill we have established what the funding levels are and so on, that's what the PUC should pay attention to when they are doing their adjudication of this. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Senator. The question is on the adoption of Floor Amendment 0826. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor of the floor amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is adopted. The bill is still on second reading and open for further discussion and amendment. Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 236. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted and the bill is ordered to third reading. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we take Senate Bill 157, which is the last bill that we have today, and special order it till next week. Is there any objection? Without objection? Okay. Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay. We are ordering Senate Bill 157 to special order for next week. Okay. I recognize Senator Birdsall for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate adjourn from the early session, that the business of the late session be in order at the present time, that all bills and resolutions ordered to a third reading be, by this resolution, read a third time. All titles be the same as adopted, and that they be passed at the present time.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The early session is adjourned. We are now in the late session. Are there any announcements to come before the Senate? Senator Pearl.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just like you all to know that this weekend is Maple Weekend. We're having an open house at our farm, as well as probably more than 100 around the state. So any of you would like to come, Saturday and Sunday, we have ours, and would love to have you stop by. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements to come before the Senate? Okay, Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Madam President. There was a senior from Pelham High School. I just wanted to say that her name's Liz Donovan. She's a wrestler. She was the New England champion, all of New England. She was obviously 4-0, but not a single point scored on her. Just congratulations to her for a job well done.
She beat the Timberland guys.
Okay. Are there any other announcements? Okay, I have one. I'd like to remind everybody about the rule concerning electronic devices. It's kind of interesting standing up here. I can see everybody. And, you know, there's a lot of folks that are on their phones. So I'm just going to read the rule again to just remind everybody that the use of electronic devices by senators, with the exception of state-issued devices, is prohibited on the Senate floor during session unless the Senate is in recess or otherwise approved by the Senate. So please, moving forward, I know it's tempting to look at your phone, but please don't do that. It's a violation of Senate rules. Okay, Senator Altschiller, I believe you would like unanimous consent?
Yes, Madam President. Late Sunday evening, Stratham lost a very special person. Muriel Rubin, born on November 11th, 1932, known to all of us as Mimi, passed away at 93 years old. Mimi and her beloved husband, the Honorable George Rubin, were my neighbors for 23 years. They adored each other. Mimi adored George and deeply loved her daughters and her grandchildren ferociously. At her service this morning at the State Veterans Cemetery, her granddaughter noted that she lived through International Women's Day because she was a feminist through and through. George served in the United States Army for 40 years and was deployed in multiple locations, the longest assignment being in Germany. And Mimi supported George, and she was a true patriot. She served alongside him, and when he retired from the service, they moved here to New Hampshire in Stratham. Mimi was stunning, most likely because she was genuinely a good person whose inner light shone so brightly. She gave generously to charity and lived to perform a mitzvah at every opportunity. When I was considering running for office 10 years ago, Mimi and George were my first kitchen cabinet. George served in the House as a rabble-rousing Republican, and Mimi as a staunch Democrat. I will miss hearing Mimi's opinions of the issues of the day. George and Mimi were married almost 71 years. Every morning, George would prepare Mimi's coffee and bring it to her. And she cherished this ritual and his morning kiss. Rest in peace, Mimi. May your name be a forever blessing.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other announcements to come before the Senate? Senator McGough.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a short bit of personal privilege, if I would.
Yes.
Just like to wish you all a happy St. Patrick's Day, which is Monday, and share a little bit of Irish history from our family. 89 years ago, in 1936, in the great flood of Pittsburgh, there was 36 people who were tragically lost, and thankfully the 15 members of my mother's family escaped with their shirts on their backs, all happy and healthy, but $5 billion of damage in today's dollars were sustained in this great St. Patrick's Day flood, and by the grace of God, only 36 lives were lost. But so every year we remember those 36 lives and try to do a little bit of charity, and I urge you all to do the same and enjoy a very, very happy St. Patrick's Day and wear a little shamrock with pride, and hopefully think of your favorite Irish joke or story or toast or something fun, and enjoy a happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any more announcements to come before the Senate? Okay. Seeing none, without objection, all personal privileges or unanimous consent shall be entered into the permanent journal of the Senate. Is there any further business? Seeing none, I recognize Senator Birdsall for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the business of the day being completed, that the Senate recess to the call of the chair for the purposes of introducing legislation, re-referring bills to committee, scheduling hearings, sending and receiving messages, vacating bills, and processing enrolled bill reports and amendments. And when we recess to the call of the chair.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The Senate is in recess to the call of the chair.